Yep, which is why I told her to stay where she was. That's the agenda. That's what this is.
Let you know if he wasn't going.
Yeah, I was just talking to,
But-
yeah.
Aye.
All right, the hour being just after 7
Oh, sorry.
on Monday, January 24th, 2022. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. If there's anyone here, just an agenda, thanks, just as an agenda item here, if there's anyone here on item 22E, which is the second reading of ordinance accessory dwelling units, that item will remain on the table tonight. So if you're here for accessory dwelling units, we're not going to discuss it tonight. Perhaps in February we will, but it will remain on the table. So prior to going any further, I'd ask us if Councilor Cheney would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Cheney. We're joined this evening by our recording secretary, Deputy City Clerk, Stacy Anders. Welcome. It's nice to have you. And if you'd be so kind as to call the roll, that'd be great.
Councilor Cheney,
here.
Councilor Susie. Present.
Councilor Susie has been in touch with all of, well, the city manager and myself, certainly indicating he's out of town.
Councilor Whitman,
Here.
Councilor Lee,
Here.
Councilor Gamble,
Here.
Councilor Phelps,
Here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Here. Also joined at council table this evening is City Manager Scott Myers. We're also joined by Finance Director Glenn Smith, who's assisting on the IT. Moving on to item number 7, which is acceptance of minutes. These are the regular meeting minutes of January 10th, 2022. Minutes of the meeting were distributed by to the City Council on Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed.
So under number 6.
Got our council presentation. I don't know why I thought I was holding that off till later, but let's just say I'm not. What would I do without you, Bob? So item number 6A, which is a council presentation. It'll take just a moment to read this, but I always think it's worthwhile. 34 years ago, the Laconia City Council established the Deborah Bionars Memorial Award for Outstanding Service to Children and Youth in the Lakes region in memory of police officer Deborah Bionars. Late Officer Bionars served the city and its youth with uncommon devotion, dedication, and distinction during her 9 years with the police department before her death in 1987. Each year, a committee comprised of one city councilor, one member of the police department, and one member of the school board selects an individual to be recognized for this award based on nominations from members of the community. The award honors a member of the community who has enlivened and enriched the lives of young people. It has been said that no one is more deserving of this award than this year's honoree. She has been described as always humble, respectful, and dignified, welcoming and warm, someone who perfectly exemplifies the outstanding characteristics possessed by the late Officer Deborah Bionars. In her role serving our community, The winner of this year's award never seeks recognition for herself, calling any successes a quote, group effort. In her years of service to the organization she has been involved with since its inception in 1956. She has served the youth of the community as well as serving their families by making hardship situations manageable and hopeful and keeping their dreams achievable. In her position with Lakes Region Scholarship Foundation, this year's honoree went out of her way to ensure the best possible outcome for each student who walked through the door requesting assistance to continue their education. She greeted each and every one of the over 500 scholarship donors by name, remembering the circumstances that caused the scholarship to be put into place initially, often due to the passing of a well-loved family member. She never failed to remember the donor's loved one fondly. She personally attended awards night at the local high schools so that each donor and student were properly recognized. Since 1956, over $7.5 million have been awarded in scholarship monies to area youth. Quite an accomplishment, mostly attributable to the hard work of this year's winner. In recognition of her outstanding commitment to the youth of Laconia, I'm extremely proud and pleased to present the 2021 Deborah Bionars Award to Joan Cormier.
Good evening, how are you? I'm flabbergasted. I'm lightheaded.
Okay, all right, well, lean on me if you need to.
Oh, I will.
There it is, right there.
Oh, my goodness.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you, and thank you, everybody. This is wonderful. I just want you to know that for one thing, you have to learn, you have to live long enough, and you have to love what you're doing. So it worked out very well for me, and thank you all so much.
Get a box.
Everything else go just as smoothly tonight and equally as enjoyable, huh? Okay, moving on to item number 8 on our agenda, consent and action items. This is a temporary traffic order 2022-01 for the Laconia Little League Parade. A request for the temporary traffic order has been requested. The parade is to be held on Saturday, April 23rd from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. This is a recurring request with no changes. I'll be looking for a motion to approve temporary traffic order 2022-01 Laconia Little League Parade to be held on April 23rd, 2022 from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. So made by Councilor Hamel, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate. Raising your hands, that's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Item number 8B, which is a request from the Lakes Region Sled Dog Club to waive special event license, vendor and loudspeaker fees for the February 11th to 13th, 2022 sled dog event. This is also a recurring request with no changes from prior years. A letter requesting a waiver of fees from the Lakes Region Sled Dog Club is attached Approval of the club's special event application is scheduled for the Special Events Review Committee's February 2nd, 2022 meeting. We're looking for a motion right now to approve the request from the Lakes Region Sled Dog Club to waive the special event, license, vendor, and loudspeaker fees for the February 11th to 13th, 2022 Sled Dog event contingent upon the event's approval at the Special Events Review Committee's February 2nd, 2022 meeting. So made by Counselor Hamel, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving right along now, item number 9, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. Anyone either online or here in the chamber who would like to speak to a matter that is not on the agenda, step right up and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening,
Nice
everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Charlie, you were out of your seat before I even get,
Well,
said item number 9.
I just figured, I was looking
Quick
at it.
first step, go right ahead.
As some of you may know, and apparently a lot of my fellow citizens in the city of Laconia don't know, the House and Senate in Concord, in their wisdom at this time, have got it so that people that live in Ward 6 will not be voting with the rest of the city in state elections. And if somebody knows something different to that, please correct me right now. It was at one time Ward 4, but now they moved it to Ward 6. So that means people in Ward 6 will be voting with people in Guilford and Gilmington. I've asked our state senator, Harold French, about this several times, and he told me today that the Senate will be caucusing on this to try to decide what they actually, how they feel about this. I think it's crazy. I wish, and I told Harold, this is my opinion, that they could maybe do like they did before, when you had one representative representing the town of Belmont and the town of Laconia. And that was what I used to do, and that was District 9, and it made sense. And there's no reason why they couldn't do that today. They could have somebody representing the city of Laconia, maybe line them up with Guilford or Gilmington. I'm just hoping that you guys can make some noise about this. And any citizens that hear this, or that maybe the paper can get out there, it's not too late to get this fixed. Again, I think it's outrageous that they're going to take Ward 6 away from the rest of the city and have them vote for totally different people as representatives. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Scott, I don't know if you've heard this. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to ask a question.
Charlie, do you know which, excuse me, do you know which House bill, is that a Senate bill or a House bill?
I
So we just
plead
go and
innocence
start-
there, not knowing which
I
bill
think
it
it's
is.
HB 50.
So I think
Okay.
it starts in the House. I think it's in the Senate right
It's in
now.
the Senate now. The House has already washed their hands of it and approved it, from what I've been told. So the Senate can change it, and then it would go back to the House, and they'd have to work it out. But again, the more noise we can all make as citizens.
So that's part of that redistricting?
Yeah,
It
my
is.
understanding is in the beginning, it was HB 50. And it was Ward 4 at that time. And I think when it went to
Yeah, I
the
know.
Senate, it changed to Ward 6.
Crazy.
I think Charlie makes the additional point, though, that there's not, whereas before, you could vote for the person that was running for both the flotational district. I think what you're saying, Charlie, is you can't even vote that way.
Right, this won't be a flotational. It'll actually be 4 representatives for that ward, Guilford and Gilmington, and then 4 representatives for the other 5 wards in Laconia. So you could end up with 4 people from Laconia representing Guilford and Gilmington, or vice versa, somebody.
Or none representing Laconia.
Right, exactly.
So I think there is an opportunity. There will be, from what I understand, the Senate will be taking public testimony on the congressional maps, the executive council maps, and the House maps a week from today. It's unconfirmed, but I keep an eye out on the calendar as it comes out this week. And I don't know, Scott, perhaps if it is in the calendar, we can quickly add it to Laconia links, if possible, just to let people know that there might be an opportunity to, either show up in person or attend virtually and weigh in on this.
We can, if we get enough notice and we can, put a placeholder in the newsletter and then just update it once we find out date, time, room, location.
Thank you. Anyone online, Mr. Smith, who'd like to offer their comments? Thank you. Moving on to item number 13, which is under public hearings. This is a public hearing for resolution 2022-02 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $30,085 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program Project. Notice of this hearing was made available in the January 12th, 2022 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, SAU Community Center, and Laconia Public Library on January 11th, 2022. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business this evening. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:16 PM. And if there's anyone here who'd like to address this matter, now would be the appropriate time. Anyone online, Mr. Smith? No, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:17 PM. Item number 13B, which is a public hearing on the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $500,000 in CDBG public facility grant funds to renovate the space at 17 Church Street, owned by the Laconia Housing Authority. Community Development Block Grant. The funds are available to municipalities through New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500,000 annually is available for economic development projects, up to $500,000 for housing projects, up to $500,000 for public facility projects, up to $500,000 for in emergency funds, and up to $25,000 per planning study grant. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. A proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $500,000 in CDBG public facility grant funds to renovate the space at 17 Church Street, owned by the Laconia Housing Authority. The renovated space would be leased to Partnership for Public Health for meeting with their clients and offering services to the community. The majority of the PPH clients are of low and moderate income. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the January 12th, 2022 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at City Hall, Community Center, Laconia Public Library on January 11th, 2022. So I'd like to open the public hearing on this matter at 7:19 PM. If there's anyone here who would like to discuss this item, now would be the appropriate time.
Just want to thank the city council and mayors.
Absolutely. For the record, just so we,
I'm sorry, Tom Cochran, Executive Director of Laconia Housing.
thanks, Tom.
We're really looking forward to collaboration with Partnership for Public Health, Tammy Carmichael, Executive Director. We work very well together for our citizens of Laconia, low to moderate income. As you know, Laconia Housing is provides housing to low income housing residents, as well as support services through our CFI program. Partnership of Public Health assists us through the application program, as well as trainings, as well as Partnership Public Health through the vaccination clinics. We're right in the middle of downtown, and we're looking forward to providing ADA accessibility to downtown, and also enjoying being downtown as well as where we are currently, utilizing the parish parking lot as well, which has been very beneficial to us as well. Really looking forward to it. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Tom, thanks very much for the work that you all do here in the city, and it's music to our ears when you say you're going to utilize the parish parking lot. So thank you.
Using it now, we appreciate it with the vaccination clinic.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Patrick?
Mr. Mayor, Patrick Wood, Ward 1 now in Laconia. I rise in support of this request for the CDBG grant funds. The Housing Authority, as you know, has moved its offices to Canal Street in the last couple of years. The primary reason for that was to make space available in the Sunrise Towers for more services for our residents and provide a better a housing alternative for them. This is an opportunity to expand our communication with a partner agency and to enable us to do more work for more people and the community. It will also bring more people downtown. An employee, and as Mr. Cochran has indicated, the push is to use the parking lot behind the St. Joseph's Church as the primary parking for both our housing authority and the agency that we're hoping to rent the property to. The purpose of the improvements are to establish office space available for a number of employees for the agency, and it would be very helpful to have this assistance so that we can get it done as soon as reasonably possible. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Patrick. Any other comments on this agenda item? Still no one online? Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:22 p.m. Item number 13C, which is public hearing on the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the proposed renovation at 17 Church Street. Although this project does not involve any displacement or relocation of persons or businesses, if the city were to undertake a CDBG project which involved displacement or relocation, they would follow this plan. The plan outlines the measures they would take to find comparable, suitable housing for persons or businesses displaced or relocated. Notice of this hearing was made available in the January 12th, 2022 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at City Hall, Community Center, and Laconia Public Library on January 11th, 2022. Once again, action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business. This time, I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:22 p.m. And if someone would like to speak, now would be the appropriate time, online or here in the chamber.
No online attendees have raised their hand, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:23 p.m. In light of the work that is ahead of us this evening, I will forego my mayor's comments. Item number 15, I prefer to move right along to council comments. Segue smoothly right into committee reports and liaison reports. So you can break them down if you like, Councilor Cheney, or just roll right through.
I just would like a couple of things, if I might, under comments. We keep getting Laconia School Department notice of meetings that have no agenda attached. And I was hoping we could ask if they'd maybe include an agenda with their notice of meetings.
Pass that right along to the city manager,
Thank you.
taking copious notes.
The other is, and shame on me, I spoke to the manager earlier today and didn't bring this up, but I was wondering what we had heard with regards to the bridge and the weirs, if anything, and what efforts we made to talk to DOT about our taking over that bridge.
So I know our Public Works Director, Wes Anderson, has spoken with folks at DOT. I think they're doing some research, getting some background information on when the last time the bridge was completely refurbished, rehabilitated, and looking at it right now, I believe also to identify what the cost would be to get it into like new condition, if you will, before it is turned over for. Certainly, if there's a reason that they're looking to close it and take it down, it's because it's in disrepair and the funds aren't there to refurbish it. And I think the last thing we want to do is take it over and end up with a big expense somewhere in short order. So, Wes, did I get that correct, or is there any more update at this point?
Mr. Stanis from DOT said they'd be sending a letter to us.
Okay. So we're expecting to hear what their approach is going to be on that, and if that's something that they're willing to consider, and if so, what the time frame would be and what the condition of the bridge would be once it would be turned over.
Thank you.
Anything further, Counselor Cheney, at this time?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Counselor Hamel.
Yes, we got an email from Scott about House Bill, Senate Bill 249. That's going to be discussed tomorrow, isn't it?
Committee
11.
public hearing tomorrow morning, yes.
I would like to see that, I'd like to see the council acknowledge this, and also that we ask Scott to attend that meeting tomorrow and give unanimous consent.
Unanimous support and opposition to the bill?
Yeah, of not
This is
supporting.
short-term rentals, is that correct?
Yeah, of
Which
not
one?
supporting that bill.
Okay. So this bill, SB 249, prime sponsor is Senator French, and it's a bill that would eliminate municipalities' ability to regulate short-term rentals. Is that the gist of it?
It would require all municipalities to allow them, and with
Okay.
very limited carve outs or additional stipulations on top of it. So right now, we've got stipulations that you got to put an application in. First of all, you need to be in the commercial resort zone. Barring that, you need to either have shown that you've rented the property for 5 years and have records, or that you're owner occupied. I think it's 150 days out of the year. And then you can come in before the ZBA and seek a special exception. If you can prove that there's a greater good for the community by you using your property as a short-term rental and you're not in the commercial resort zone. This would allow it in any zone. It would not allow us to require owner occupied. It would not allow us to mandate that we go in and inspect a property as we do right now for basic life safety measures, CO2 detectors, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers. If someone's using a basement, that there's appropriate windows or means of egress from a basement. Right now, based on a square footage calculation they use in the hotel industry, we can set a limit as to how many people could stay, overnight, and sleeping in a short-term rental. We also right now require that all the parking be contained on driveways and not spill over into the road. We also require a name of an emergency contact who we can get in touch with immediately by phone for issues with noise or parking or other complaints as they may occur. This would only allow that we have a name on record that we can serve legal notices to, and that doesn't sound like a very quick turnaround process to try to remedy something. So it takes a lot of what I believe, and I think all you believe, are some of the reasonable safeguards we put into this. And as was, brought to our attention a couple of years ago, opens it up for a party house on Old North Main Street again, to have different weekly rentals there of different people who are all there to enjoy the great amenities that we have, but they don't necessarily blend in with the neighborhood. So serious concerns. And I did mention to somebody earlier, I think the challenge with this bill is there seemed to be some significant support both from Republicans and Democrats who have signed on to it already. So killing the bill outright in committee or killing it in the Senate, I think, is an uphill battle, but we certainly should be pushing to allow communities to be able to implement some of the reasonable items that I just mentioned.
Has Senator French been in contact with you at all about this bill?
He is not.
Okay. All right, so if this bill were to pass and become law, the situation we ran into on Old North Main Street, which I really think was motivated everybody to do something about this, would just, we would have no ability to do anything about it except just call the police for noise issues or things of that nature.
Correct.
Okay.
Plus, I think it also would lessen our ability to maintain single-family homes where people could come in and buy them and use them strictly for that.
Certainly, housing stock could certainly dwindle if people just came in and bought them for the pure purpose of running short-term rentals.
Then the other thing we also put in our ordinance, or whatever you want to call it, was that no trash has to be removed. Be left there the day they leave, which could be a week that's not going to be picked up. So, that's another thing that we made sure that was addressed. So
Could your schedule accommodate attending the hearing tomorrow and testifying?
Yes, I want to say it's 10 o'clock tomorrow morning or 9:30, 10 o'clock, somewhere in there, but yes, I can make that.
Yeah, and also Scott send us a link that we can go into and sign in remotely on whether we, approve of it or disapprove. So if you can't make the meeting, I would suggest that at least all the counselors do that, and anybody in the public that would not agree with what's going on down there with this bill, that they do the same.
And generally speaking, they don't exec the bill and take a position on it the same day they do a hearing. On rare occasions, they might. So even though the hearing is tomorrow, they typically come back to it at a work session at a later time. So if people wanted to chime in.
Yeah. Could you put that link on our website, Scott, if it's not already there?
I can,
Send it to us.
I've sent it to you an email. I can resend you the email again with a link. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there's a great spot that people are going to automatically go to our website and look to find a link on a certain bill, I think is the only concern.
Yeah.
Any other comments, council comments, and Council Lippman?
Has the municipal association taken a position on this?
The municipal association is going to be speaking against the bill as it stands. And I think, I can't speak for their approach, but again, I think they see the same mountain to climb in order to kill this outright just for the sponsors. So I think their approach might be to amend it and make it better so that, yes, municipalities need to allow it, but they can put restrictions on where it can occur. Some of the things that we've done, I know, Councilor Hammond and I were chatting on this earlier tonight. I mean, Conway has had the same issue with this. It's been brought up locally in the paper on Guilford going through it. So I think we're the furthest along in establishing ordinances or an ordinance on this in the state. But I'd hate to see how that work. And it seems to have worked fairly well for us. We don't have 100% compliance, and we're working through one of those firms that can come in and help us, track down and monitor and look at that stuff. And Dean's been interviewing a couple, and I've just let him know to hang on and just see what happens with this bill, because if this bill, passes and ultimately gets signed into law, we don't have a lot of enforcement of people not following our ordinance, because our ordinance is basically going to go by the wayside.
If I could add, our ordinance has been in effect for a while now, and there hasn't been any groundswell that I'm aware of opposition to the inspections and other things that we require. So I think we should make them aware, the senators aware, that the ordinance that we have in place has not caused a great deal of heartburn amongst Airbnb and other folks. I would also remind, because I think I was the first to get a call, that the incident on Old North Main Street involved 22 people in a 3-bedroom home. And using the next door neighbor's dock to go swimming and whatever. So, I mean, the ability to make some adjustments should be readily apparent to even a casual observer. Perhaps not the Senate, but.
Scott, I'll join you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Okay, are there any other council comments right now? If not, how about committee reports? Councilor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had asked, and I think Scott, at least I saw delivered, that each of you get the solid waste packet that was available to us at the committee meeting, which was last Thursday. As you remember, and I'm going to try to be brief, because if you look at the presentation that Wes Anderson gave, there's a lot of information there. Some of it I don't want to get into tonight, because I think it's some administrative things and some items that I think the council is going to want to discuss later. However, I think it's imperative that the Public Works Director made it clear that he needs some kind of direction from us, either tonight or sometime in February. And I'm sure the council may want to look at all the information submitted before we take any action as far as, administrative things. But I'll try to give you an overview. Last fall, the committee met, and the Public Works Director made us aware of that the collection contract was up as of October of this year, and the incinerator contract was up at the end of this year. There were a lot of forces driving this, and after the presentation of the Public Works Director, the committee unanimously decided to go with an automated system of automated collection system. Now, what's driving this? Okay. The committee was made aware by the Public Works Director that we had one bid, and that was from Casella. There's labor shortages, there's inflation, there's fuel costs, and eventually we're going to have to look at in the landfill and incinerator costs. What does this all mean? Okay. The automated system will allow us to cut some costs and also to have an automated system. One of the other things, what this means is we're going to have to look at the entire realm of our solid waste fees and collection systems at the transfer station. We'll have to look at maybe the possibility of the city operating its own system to collect the parks, recreation, and other facilities. I think that, I think there's a lot of information the council will want to look at. I think we can later on get into what I call the weeds as far as how we want to go about the system of looking at fees and permits and et cetera and so on. But in the year 2022, no, I believe 2023, we're going to be looking at a cost of $323,000 just in the solid waste contracts and systems that we're going to have to deal with. So as far as the automated system, I think we've talked about that the city of Franklin has that. It's what it means is that the trash containers would be picked up by an automated by a truck that has automated arms, and that's the way the trash, and I should say the recycling will also be collected. So that was the findings of the committee. We're recommending that to you, but that's is only for the action for the full council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, of course.
Okay, on the automatic recycling, now, if I remember right, the price of those trucks were included in a fee for Laconia to pay. Is that correct?
Yes, when they made the bid, they obviously need to go out and purchase a new truck, but they've built that into their operational costs. So when they've made the bid, it's
So
based on.
Okay, is that truck going to be solely used in Laconia?
No, it'll be owned by Casella, and they've got an opportunity to use that. But when we went out for the bid the first time just by ourselves, if we were to go automated, the challenge was we collect trash every week. So you've got one truck that would basically run the 5 days a week, every week for trash. But we only pick up recycling curbside every other week. So now they've got a truck that's only used half of the time, and they didn't have an out for it somewhere else. So it was going to be more expensive for us because basically that truck was going to be sitting idle for half the time. The second time we went out to bid, we had conversations ahead of time that the committee encouraged us to have with Belmont. And now by doing the bid with Belmont, the trucks, plural, that Casella would purchase would be used full-time, both trucks, and therefore it wouldn't be sitting idle. And it had some cost savings because it had an opportunity to be in use every week as opposed to one of the trucks every other week. So their price for purchasing the vehicles is obviously built into their bid, but.
Okay, so is Belmont also picking up the cost of the truck?
The truck, so they bid them based on stops and whatever. So even though we went out jointly for the bid, we have a Laconia price and Belmont has their price. So that it was a blended bid, but completely separate numbers came to both communities based on stops and all that type of stuff.
Okay, so that means every resident in Laconia has to get a different container.
So with the committee, the thought was that since the city is going, if we go this route, we will be requiring that certain totes be used, and they're the heavy duty ones that the city sold a number of years back for the recycling. So basically it's the
Same
the
thing.
wheeled toters, but the ones with a metal bar that come up around 2/3 of the way, because that's what gets lifted up and dumped into the truck. So we would be providing, again, subject to council approval, but we would be supplying 164-gallon toter for the average household, single-family house, because right now our ordinance states trash is limited to 230-gallon barrels. So you're limited at 60 right now. We would be providing a 64-gallon toter and then a 96-gallon recycle. And obviously, we still want to encourage recycling, but the other component is all your recycling needs to fit into the toter. You see sometimes now people have maybe cardboard, stacked up beside it type of thing, because that's bigger and bulkier. Everything is going to need to fit inside the toter, because again, there's not a person jumping off the back of the truck, to come in and throw it in. It's being handled by the arm. There will be opt-out provisions for someone if they're a senior citizen, elderly, have a disability, and say, I don't need a 64-gallon trash toter or a 96-gallon recycling. We can make accommodations for those folks and do them down to a 32-gallon, on the trash, or a 64 recycling rather than the 96. So we'll work with folks on that, but and we would be providing these up front. If we go this route, we will be doing a 10-year bond to pay for them, because depending on the number of totes that we end up needing, we think it's about a $600,000 to $700,000 one-time expense. These carts have proven to be very durable. I bought one when we did them for the recycling, and it's got to be 8-9 years old now, and it looks almost as good today and works just fine. So and then these would stay with the property, so they'll have serial numbers on them and stamp City of Laconia, and they'd be delivered to the house, and the intent would be when someone sells, they stay behind because they're part of the house for the pickup at that point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other committee reports or liaison reports this evening? Seeing none. Item number 19, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. If anyone's here in the chamber would like to speak on a current agenda item, or anyone online, now would be the appropriate time. Come on up and introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm attorney Phil Brouillard. I'm here to speak on the 35 North Street parking ban. We were fortunate.
Just hand them to the clerk, Phil, and she can pass them out.
We were fortunate today to meet with the Public Works Director, the Police Chief, Councilman Felch, who's been provided those materials already, Mr. Mudge and myself. Basically, Mr. Mudge had a presentation, and Mr. Wes Anderson gave us a plan that when you get the materials, it's the second sheet. And basically, it's probably one of the most up-to-date plans the city has right now, that area. It has to do with the sewer being replaced in that area. And it shows, it's the second page. And it shows 35 North Street, and what a unique property it is.
Got everything or too much?
Anyway, the plan I'm talking about is the second sheet. Mr. Powell also provided me the city's taking of the original street. And what I had given you was an easement that is, we believe, is for the stone retaining wall that you see there, that I put in orange highlighting. And if you look, you can see the property line almost goes to Mr. Mudge's house, and then it takes another vector angle out. So the purpose of this is to show you graphically and pictorially that eliminating the parking on that side of the street is very devastating to his property, And there is also a curbing along that sidewalk with just one little access point. Obviously, there's been 100 homes supposedly built down at the northerly end of North Street. And then Mr. Mudge is going to go into the fact of his house was built in the 1800s when nobody had cars and they had horses and barns. And so there was no driveway for the house. We have inquired of the police department, the police chief and the fire chief, and they're not aware of any
Use the microphone.
accidents or dangerous reported incidents in this area. We don't dispute that it's not the safest situation in the world, but it just seems that in the particular situation of this particular property, and also you're going to see from some of Mr. Mudge's materials, just putting no parking on this little tiny area of North Street when there's no parking the rest of North Street really doesn't make a lot of sense. And so our suggestion was that the abutters across the street didn't have any problem with putting the no parking on their side of the street. So if you wanted to start off with not having no parking on the other side of the street, that might be a way of alleviating some of the people that have brought this forward to Councilman Felch's concerns without totally disenfranchising and taking important constitutional property rights of property away from a owner who's owned the property for 44 years and needs that access for an elderly family member who's 90 years old that lives there and her caregivers. This would be a devastating impact to not have no parking for their thing. Now, after speaking with the councilman, the police chief and the public works director, we didn't feel that we had gotten anywhere as far as support goes. And we're certainly not here to say that that's the safest spot in Laconia, but we also think that the board, the council has to balance the interests of the public, the interests of the other people that have made complaints, and also the interests of the property owner, who is in fact given the city an easement to build that sidewalk on his own, adjacent to his own property for the benefit of the whole entire city. So it just seems not to be a very fine how do you do to where his property is burdened with a sidewalk to take away his access to his property when we don't really know that it's necessary and we don't have any documented accidents. We don't have any incidences. We just have some people up the street that use that as their way downtown, and they think that there's a problem. There may be a problem, but it just seems that the way to try this out and see what happens is to maybe do it incrementally and put the parking ban on one side of the street, but not the other. That's our main request. And Mr. Mudge has a good historical presentation here that he's going to run through very briefly.
I've said it before that it's a 150-year-old house built on the side of a hill. So there was no need for parking cars at that time because there weren't any. The horse and buggies were kept in the barn, and the barn has since turned into an apartment. The no parking signs in Lakeport are on both sides of Elm Street, from the bridge to the end of the park, or up to Bell Street. And then there's another no parking zone from Jefferson Street to the heck's the name of that other street there? Up to the country club stores or whatever the heck it is there. That's in front of the school, so that the people can't park there between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The only other places that there is no parking is on Fairmont Street on a single lane street that goes from Elm Street down to Belvedere Street. And there's no parking from Fairmont Street to School Street. I have no idea why. One of the widest streets in Lakeport in that area. And for parking on neither side of the street for half of the block, it just seems terribly out of place. That's what I have to say about the parking. The sidewalks. I only bring this up because I think there's going to be some problems here. And that is from Belvedere Street over to North Street. There are houses there that don't have any parking because the lake or the harbor is directly behind them. There's a double sidewalk that goes from the bridge up to North Street. And the other sidewalk is on the other side of the street that goes up to all the way up to the end of Belvedere Street to Jefferson Street. So if there's not going to be any parking there with 15 boat slips behind it, I don't know what to say. You're trying to get people up here to enjoy the lake and stuff, but again, there's no parking. If they move the sidewalk over the other side between Belvedere Street and Sheridan Street, there's plenty of room there. It's a short distance. Then they would have the parking for the houses that don't have parking and also for the boaters who have their boats there.
By the way, this project to fix the sewer, we spoke to Mr. Anderson, and he said that he couldn't put the sidewalk over there because he had to use sewer money for this and couldn't build the sidewalk with that money. He had to.
Where's that on the other side of Sheridan Street, you're saying?
No,
Yes.
on the other side of North Street.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it's
okay.
being torn up and the sewer pipes being all placed, so it would be a good time to put that sidewalk in, but
It's
can't-
just
he can't-
mostly to give a break to the people who have older homes there that have no place to park. It's never been addressed. The streets and sidewalks keep getting closer to the houses. There was a time when you could park on the sidewalks. I understand that times change, but that's eliminating a very important part of getting in and out of our front door. So that's the parking or the sidewalk situation. And when they do tear up North Street and Sheridan, whatever, I think that would be a good time to put the sidewalk on the other side. No, everyone on that side has driveways, plenty of parking area.
Me too.
And the other thing that's like to talk about are those are the sidewalks. The sidewalks up on Upper North Street. And if you look at 105 North Street, that's the end of the sidewalks. From there to Pogus Park, there are no sidewalks. And if you look at the way cars are parked there, they're off the street. They've got plenty of room to park. They don't have to be in their driveways, although they have plenty of room in their driveways. There's a
This is
car-
beyond the area we're focusing on though, Mr. Mudge, isn't it?
Pardon me?
It's beyond the area that we're considering tonight.
Yes, it
Up the
is.
street. Okay.
Yes, it
All
is.
right. I want to make that clear and keep it focused on just what
Just on down
just what we're
below.
working on now. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that I brought up with the stop signs. And if you notice on Mass Ave, Jefferson, and Fairmont Street.
Except though, Mr. Mudge, again, I don't think the stop signs are on the agenda. So I
Okay.
understand what you're saying, that we probably take a look at that at some point, but the agenda just has to do with this limited section of road with for no parking.
One thing that we did also discuss is on the last page, these purple curve signs ahead. And Mr. Anderson indicated that signs like that would be a good idea at the top and bottom of the hill to advise motorists that there's a curve ahead. But anyway,
Well, also the line of sight. If you could look at that, and that is in the area we're talking about.
Right.
well, thank you for your time and attention. And if you do take this matter off the table and you do vote on it, we would just request that you not put the no parking ban effect on Mr. Mudge's side of the street. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Brouillard. And
Ask him a question.
sure, if you like, sure.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Are
Phil.
you open to a question?
Oh, sure.
On your property, is there room for a driveway or is there no room?
Well, actually, the sidewalk is right up to the house. The barn is the property line. And on the front of the house, there's a steep slope that goes down to Sheridan Street. And that's where I normally park, in the winter to get the cars off the road. And also up above it, I purchased a lot up above as an adjustment and a buffer. And that has some parking spots as well. But that's 100 yards from my front door. And the parking area down below is like 38 steps that I had to put in there to get from down below up to the house.
Okay.
That's like climbing, 3 flights of stairs.
And it's not necessarily that, he's pretty spry, but he's got a 90-year-old mother-in-law.
I really don't mind doing it, but there are other people who live in that house.
Okay,
You know,
so Phil, you said the people across the street would not object to.
Well,
having no parking?
I
Did
don't
you
want
talk
to
to
put
them?
words, I don't want to put words in
Did you
anybody's
talk
mouth.
to them?
He came here and he testified with that meeting. You were not here 3 weeks, well, no, it's not 3 weeks, 6 weeks ago. And he said that he had no problem having no parking on his side. And he testified forthrightly and honestly, and he like someone that wanted to resolve the problem. And we would like to resolve the problem, but due to the nature of this property, it's just very difficult for us to give up that access. It'd just be debilitating.
So is the problem that when you get cars parked on both sides of the streets, then that's the problem, or is there never any on the other
There
side?
are never any cars parked on the other side of the street. The only place we park is in front of the house where the front door is. There are 3 apartments there. And, probably 3 or 4 cars anyway that will stop there, load, unload, stop in, have lunch, leave.
On your
so forth
side.
and so- Pardon me?
On your side?
Yes. And there is a cutout there. They left some of the, curbing off a 90-foot portion in front of the house so that we could get off. But today, they're a little more adamant about not parking on the sidewalk. So that's pushed it out another couple of feet.
Okay, Phil, so you spoke with the fire department and they said they'd have no trouble putting a truck through there?
I'm
If
sorry.
there was vehicles parked on one side?
Well,
Not parked, Phil.
I didn't ask him that question. I asked him if he had ever had any trouble or anybody ever said anything about having trouble responding or getting through there. And he said he'd never heard of it. And the police chief didn't have any recollection of any issues either.
Okay.
And certainly, we're not saying that Councilman Felch's motion to bring this forward and put this through is not well-intentioned and has some issues. It's just that putting it on both sides really does a job on Mr. Mudge and his property.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mudge.
Thank you.
Hello, Charlie.
Good evening. One quick question, since this wasn't on, I didn't see it there, but it just came up about the trash pickup. Is that going to be before a public hearing at some point? Before the council does anything with that?
We'll be putting it on as an agenda item. It would not require a public hearing, but it'll be on and posted as an agenda item.
So we can come and talk about it on matters on the agenda, like a public hearing.
I don't see why not.
That should be at our next meeting.
What's that?
That should be at our next meeting.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'm here about the, on the agenda for Motorcycle Week, the vendor fees. I just have a proposal. I hope you guys will consider it. I think it simplifies everything. I know that the, looking at the schedule here, it goes from $4.50 to $5.50 for the week. And then if you want to open up Friday, it goes from $50 to $75. And what I'd like to see, what I think would be better is if you guys went to $600 for the week, but included in that Friday. Now, not all the vendors, and you can check your own records, not all the vendors open up on Friday. Just for whatever reason they don't. They may not get here in time. They may not be set up ready. But this fee at $600 would cover that first Friday. And actually, I think because a lot of people or vendors don't all set up on that Friday, they'll still be paying the fee for it, whether they set up or not. It makes the equation go from $50 a day to $60 a day for the permit. And I think that's reasonable. The other thing I would recommend is that we do away with this foolishness, which goes way back before our current city manager, and I think most of you, not all of you though, of not allowing vendors to open up before noon on Friday. So we have people that they're set up or they're setting up, and tourists, and then normally tourists, not motorcyclists, sometimes motorcyclists will come up and say to somebody, hey, can I buy that right there? Because they're not going to be in the town or the city the rest of the week. They're passing through whatever. And they run the risk of selling something, of being written up on that. I don't know if it's the police that do that or certain city officials are out watching for that. And it just seems so counterproductive. It would be so much simpler, again, if we went from the Friday in the morning right through the end of the week and let people do their business, let people in this visitors do their business and simplify it for everybody, including city departments. So they're not out there. Geez, it's 11:45. We got a problem here. It would start right there. So that's my thoughts. If you have any questions, I just think it's much simpler. It achieves what the city wants, is to bring in some more money. And I think that is well thought out. And I think $600 is fair. I know there's some people think that the 600 or even the 550 was less than, like, say, the city of Sturgis. But the reality is out there, it's for 12 days out there. And their formula is based on the size of their vendor spot versus a straight fee. But I think that's a fair price, $600. I really do. And I hope you'll consider that. And I hope you'll consider it to start right early Friday morning when people are open up and go right through the last day.
Thank you, Charlie. Councilor Littman, are you open to a question?
Of course. I am.
How early, Charlie?
I think that
5 after 12 in the AM? I know you're not. That's not what you're proposing.
I think, and the city manager can back me up on this. You would think I would not have this in my mind, but I know we open up rally headquarters at 8 in the morning during the week. So I guess 8 in the morning. I mean, 9 in the morning, whatever. It's just for the people who are up there in the morning. They can do their business. Some people come up, as you know, on Friday. There are people that come up from local people that come up from the city they want to come up, buy stuff, and then they don't come up. Well, they can't drive up there the rest of the week anyway. So it just works out for it better.
Thank you.
I'll see you on the trash one later. Thank you very much.
Any other citizen comments on current agenda items? Seeing none, city manager's report is item number 20.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So included in your packet for this meeting tonight, we have two reports. The first one is the project update. Being in the middle of January, we're in planning stages for the spring. So working on our 2022 road program. We do know the area, Elm Street, will be finishing the sewer replacement and then stubbing off onto Mass Ave and Jefferson Street. An update on the municipal docks for the big grant that the city was awarded. It did get approved through Governor and Council this fall. We're designing it right now with our engineering firm, and we'll be submitting it to the state. The state is going to consider, with the shoreline construction going on, obviously New Hampshire DES needs to weigh in and approve it. They are considering this under their scope of review as being a large impact project. So it's my understanding that it gives them up to 4 months to review and approve the work that we're doing there. My hope is that since they've already seen this and we've submitted through the state in order to get this grant, that hopefully there could be an expedited review and we could get out to bid this spring. I'm told that I'm being optimistic, and that's probably not what's going to happen with the 4-month window. So if that is the case, that's just the difference between whether construction happens pre-boating season or post-boating season. Either way, we feel it's going to happen next year. The grant's awarded. We've already put our local match. Obviously, as I stated to you when we were applying for this, all bets are off on where the bids will come in just because of construction materials, and what we estimated, 2 years ago, has probably increased, but we definitely have the 160 whatever thousand for the grant, and we've got at least 60 something that we put away already for our local match. So the lion's share of the money is there, even if we need to get a little more. We'll just wait and see what the timing is for the construction. The second report of the month is the economic development. Again, you can see at the top of that page that for November, which is the latest unemployment data that we've got available, everything from Laconia County, Concord, Manchester State was at 2.4% or lower in unemployment. And we have the final December number for inflation. The consumer price index number is in, and that's one of the components of our tax cap calculation. So just the month of December saw inflation run at 7%. So for the year, we've ended up with a number of 4.7% is the annualized CPIU. Again, that can tie into the budget. One other document I handed out at your seats this evening is got the New Hampshire Retirement System dashboard. Full disclosure, I serve as a trustee on the New Hampshire Retirement System Board. This is a public document. This is included in our agenda packets on a monthly basis. And I just thought every couple of years I update you. I know we had the former executive director, George Lagos, up here and presented about things like the unfunded liability and current status and what, but I just thought this was a simple 2-page read. So to go through it quickly, the graph at the top tells you where assets were as of the end of the third quarter of the calendar year. So the end of the first quarter for the retirement system fiscal year. So through 9/30/21, assets were at over $11.4 billion. You can see at the beginning of the chart, going back to the June 30th date of 2012, we were at $5.7 billion. So literally assets have doubled over the last 10 years. You can see how the retirement systems investments go against comparable benchmarks for both the 1, 3, 5, and 10-year numbers against peer funds of our size in terms of dollar amount. And you can see that they rank in the top 20%, top 19, 18%, up to the top 29% in all those categories, 1, 3, 5, and 10. So against peer groups, we are certainly holding our own. Contributions that come in on a yearly basis from employers and employees. You can see here in fiscal year 22 is $183 million a month comes into it. And then the benefits paid out every month you can see are more than the amount that comes in. So we've got it's not a fully mature plan, meaning that there's a lot more retirees than people paying in, but we've got $243 million goes out into retirement benefits that get paid every month. The retirement system did a study and it shows that about 70% of that money stays right here in the state with people still living here. Not everybody's a snowbird. So all of that money comes back to people and gets spent here locally. You can see there's about 1,000 people a year on average put in their paperwork and retire from the system from their job. And that could be state employees, teachers, public works, city hall folks, police, fire. This is the one that people like to focus on. And what is our funded ratio? Everybody says the retirement system is underfunded, and it is. That's an accurate statement. Back in 2011, some significant steps were put into place that changed some of the ground rules on how you can retire and at age and years of service and those types of things. So you can see from 2012, the actuarials calculated we were at a 56% funded level of the assets that we should have. And here we are 10 years later, and we're up to 64%. So slow and steady progress is being made. And I won't get too technical, but back in 2011 and 12, they basically had a 30-year plan of amortization to get it there. So they were taking slow, steady progress. And, you know, here we are 10 years into it, and we're really right on track with what was projected. So active members, you can see these are the number of whether it's state or local employees who are paying into the system. Pretty steady all the way through the years in that 47 to 48,000 number of active members. So employees who are paying in. The bottom graph, you can see the retirees and the beneficiaries has gone from 28,000 people in 2012 up to almost 41,000 people for the end of last year. So that's kind of, again, not a fully mature program, but as you start creeping up and you've got as many retirees as people paying in, you know, that gets it more mature. But so employees are staying level, but the retirees have seen a significant increase over those 10 years. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting quick snapshot and gives you a good update as to what's happening with not only a significant part of our budget dollars, but also for all our employees and their retirement, you know, is safe and protected and on track for them. So happy to take questions on any of that or anything else you may have tonight.
Any questions to the city manager? Thank you, Scott. Okay, moving on to item number 21, which is our new business, excuse me. Request from Joyce's Craft Shows to waive special event and licensing fees for an arts and crafts show to be held July 30th to 31st, 2022. Joyce Indy, organizer and producer of Joyce's Craft Shows, is requesting a waiver of the special event and licensing fees for a lakeside craft show to be held on the 30th and 31st of 2022 at 70 Endicott Street, former site of the Lobster Pound. A letter requesting the waiver of fees is attached. The Special Events Review Committee will be considering this application on their February 2nd, 2022 meeting. Council approval is being requested prior to special events meeting to allow Ms. Indy to begin advertising as soon as possible in order to obtain confirmation from vendors and ensure a successful event. We're looking for a motion right now to move to approve the request from Joyce's Craft Shows to waive the special event and licensing fees for the Lakeside Craft Show to be held July 30th and 31st, 2022, contingent upon the event's approval at the Special Events Review Committee's February 2nd meeting. So made by Councilor Phelps, seconded by who's second? Anybody second? Go right ahead.
I just asked if everybody noticed why, because she was going to donate money.
That was content on the letter that's been attached.
Right.
And so just as a
I'm here.
how about if I can get a second for discussion's sake and maybe.
I'll
she can
second
go
for
ahead.
Dick's council.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Any further
lady
discussion?
is in the
Cindy, would you, welcome. Could you come on up and say hello?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I love your hat.
Thank you. It's warm. Mayor Hosmer, Scott Myers, Councilman, thank you for putting me on the agenda this evening. Yes, and I wanted to see if you would waive the fees for me, but I would like to help you also. I'm very interested in the Weirs Beach Restoration Project and would like to donate $500 from the proceeds of the fair to that project. And also I'd like to donate my time, energy, and so forth. I donate, I organize and promote a lot of the fairs in the area. So I would have the ability to distribute information about the project, and I would be able to help with fundraising. I would love to do that. I'm an avid boater. I love the lake, and I would love to give something back to the lake. So it's a new show. There are a lot more fees with the new fair. The fair would increase tourism. I advertise extensively. That's my job.
Mhm.
So do you have any questions for me?
think going back on the, sure, going back on the Wares Beach Restoration. On page number 2, which is 25 in our packet. The Parks and Recreation Department did meet with Miss Endy, who would like to see a lighthouse or a gazebo placed at the end of the proposed new jetty closest to the channel. And she would like to take a lead in helping to fundraise for it. This is a step in that right direction, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken.
I know it would be expensive.
Okay, Counselor Hamel.
Yeah, just curious, is this your address, 70 Endicott, your personal address?
No, that's the address of the former Lobster Pound.
Okay, and-
That's where the craft fair would be held.
Correct. And where do you live?
I live in Guilford.
Okay, so how many vendors do you think you would have there?
Well, I don't know yet. At least 60. I have to have at least 60 to have a good fair to advertise it. For the first year, it's always smaller. I have to prove the location, if you will, to my vendors. But it will be advertised extensively, and I've been doing this for 30 years, believe it or not. So I'll do the very best that I can.
And who profits from this? Do you personally?
I profit, it's a profit-making entity. This is how I make my living.
Okay.
And it benefits all the small businesses. There are many, many small businesses.
And Scott, what do we get for a vendor fee for that? Is it $30?
I don't know, to be honest with you, off the top of my head.
Well, the fees that I was given from Nancy Brown and someone else in licensing, it was 500 and 600. So it was a total of $1,100.
Per
No,
vendor?
for everything, for
No,
me.
What she's
And then
seeking
the
is,
ven-
I'm
the
sorry,
vendors-
what
the
Joyce
vendor-
is seeking is the waiving of the special event fee, the application and that fee, and the licensing fee. It's not waiving any vendor fees that we might be doing or she might be collecting. It's just waiving the application fee for holding the special events and the licensing.
So the individual vendors that she could have would still have to pay a fee.
No, not the way your licensing is written. In other words, my fee,
Your fee encompasses
in,
all the vendors.
correct, but they don't pay me for the city of Laconia, if that's what you're asking. I don't collect anything for the city, just for the show, which is what I do for all my other fairs.
So Scott, just walk through this just a little bit. So the fee that Miss Endy, if this were not to be waived, would be how much?
I'm going to take, I think Nancy provided her the 500 and the 600. So one is a special event application, which comes in for all the review and staff time and the logistics of putting something on. And then I think this was lined up like with a chili festival or a chowder fest, where if individual restaurants were there, rather than charging each individual restaurant, you charged just the event organizer the one fee. So 500 would be an application and for the time of special events. And it sounds like the 600 is for the licensing fee for the event as one fee collected, as opposed to smaller fees. For
But so the individual vendors that would come into the area that she has cordoned off would not have to come to the city for any
No.
individual permits?
No, correct.
Oh, okay, so you're really licensing the square footage of the space out there.
Right. And we did that with Pumpkin Fest to simplify it, just to have when that's held with the chamber gets license for the downtown. And then they're the one who takes on the lead in approving the different vendors and where they go and setups and all that type of stuff, and any logistics and cost with putting the event on falls on the chamber. So this was a way to streamline it so that 50 or 60 vendors didn't all have to come to the city to pay a relatively small amount for a 2-day event, different than Motorcycle Week, which we know he gets into street closures and different hours of operation, and it's a different animal.
Has the council, in your memory, dealt with a situation like
Yes.
this before? Oh, good.
I think the issue is that in terms of for-profit versus nonprofit, I think we've had a policy that if it's for-profit, we don't necessarily waive the fees. Under special circumstances, we might, but generally, I guess the concern is the integrity of ever being able to charge a fee. I appreciate that you want to make a donation, but the precedence that sets in terms of the overall administration of the program makes that one-time donation more costly to us in terms of running the fee schedule that we set up. And it's nothing against your event. In fact, we want you to have the event and we want you to be successful. I just think that the concern is if we keep on making exceptions, then we have no structure to really what we've implemented. And that's historically how we've kind of worked through this stuff.
I wouldn't be able to give a donation to the restoration project.
Understood.
Um,
Understood. The issue is that you're kind enough that you want to give a donation, but it doesn't necessarily put us in a position to treat people equally who come before us and similarly situated who do or don't give a donation.
So going along with Henry, because I know we've done this before, but I would be more than happy to approve the event, but not the vendor fees. I mean, we need to do the vendor fees or the cost of that.
Understanding that we won't get a donation.
That's, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, just purely from an administrative point, your role here tonight is either to waive the fees or not waive the fees.
Right.
It's not to approve the event. That would
Yeah,
happen
no,
through
no,
special.
no.
So just clarifying.
So we have a motion on the table, which is to approve the request from the Sandy to waive special event and licensing fees. Is there any further discussion on this?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Were you thinking of amending
No, I would vote no on this.
on this?
Right.
If the motion was amended to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Manager. If we amended to say the fee for the event is waived, but the fee for the vendors is not.
Yeah, but we don't charge for individual vendors.
No.
It's all one clump for the whole thing. For the event.
Okay, but if we ask her to,
Yeah, but then that's what Scott just brought up. So we don't have 60 vendors coming to City Hall and
oh,
applying.
no,
We
no,
do
I understand. If we
one
if we
fee.
ask her to pay one fee of 600 was.
Right, so there's a $500 fee for the application and the review and the process, and then the $600 for the licensing fee. So she's requesting the 1,100 be waived.
It seems like we're trying to do the right thing here, but we're hurting the integrity of the whole process. That's what I'm concerned about, because we could set a poor precedent here. I'm worried.
I think it's the hat.
I'll take the hat off.
That's a good.
Oh, it's a good hat.
Oh,
So move to call the roll.
Is there any way to reduce the fee?
not in a way that doesn't come across as arbitrary, I think, because then we'd have to treat everyone the exact same. And I think the challenge really is.
Even is everybody that gonna donate
You go-
something to the city though, some other
um,
cause? I mean, the Weir's Beach Restoration Project is such an important cause.
I'm not saying this, you don't raise a good point. I don't think
It's
we
just-
have the tools in our toolbox here at the council right now to say we can reduce it by a certain amount and make sure that we can apply it consistently to everyone else who comes before us. That's going to be the challenge. So as much as I think we all support you and we're thrilled in so many respects, I think we have to be cautious in how we do this. That would be my sense, but Counselor Felch has called the question right now, so that's non-debatable, and I have to call the question. So all those in favor of the motion that's on the floor right now, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed, please indicate. So that's 5 votes in the negative. That motion fails.
All right.
I'm sorry, but let's not give up on trying to do our best to help you set something up here and get something going.
No,
don't
I'm
know
very
what it looks like.
disappointed, obviously.
Yeah, sure. I believe that. And sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's a unique situation for us right now, and there's no precedent
you.
for us to follow. Item number 21B is an increase in vendor licensing application fees for Motorcycle Week. As we see, Glenn Smith, our finance director, has given us a proposal of the current fee and a proposed fee with various breakdowns in front of us. As structured right now, it's estimated that the fee adjustments will increase Motorcycle Week revenues by approximately $16,000. I think we have in front of us as well an idea floated by Mr. St. Clair, indicating that instead of asking for a Friday vending surcharge of $75 on that first Friday, that we should eliminate that and just charge the vendor application fee of a flat $600, not $550. Wondering what your thoughts might be on that.
To include the Friday before that first weekend.
Yes.
I'd make that motion. Mr.
I'd second it.
Yeah. Second, all right. Any further discussion on this? Councilor Lippman?
I'm supportive of it, but I just want to make sure that it isn't imposing any extra costs in terms of life safety on us, and if they could speak to it.
If we could have Chief Campfield, I had the same question. I don't know the answer to it that Councilor Lippman just raised. If you know, now you've got a lot more vendors and a lot more activity down there, does that change the scheduling and require additional staff? So I wonder if Chief Campfield could come up and at least chime in so that you're fully aware of what the impact would be.
Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. No, I don't think it would change our policing efforts much for that Friday. We typically plan for a busy Friday night that first weekend anyway, so especially depending on the weather. So
Thank you.
He's just worried Charlie will give him a flat tire if he.
In jest, of course, that's
Yes,
not going
oh,
to
yes.
occur, but what I think it does also, as a flat fee, that 16,000 may increase as well. So, but who knows? But
Yes,
okay.
it will.
Councilor Hamel.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. I would agree with what you said. The only thing is, as long as Charlie doesn't creep it into Thursday or Wednesday. Because basically they start setting up 2 weeks before. So, I mean, so with this doesn't become a 14-day or whatever
Right.
event.
I
So
think we can count on the
Friday is
chief.
gonna be the cut.
Yeah, I think we can count on the chief to enforce the Friday deadline.
I'd make a motion, Councilor Hamel, go undercover. Maybe a camera, maybe a biker outfit, get around down there and let's shed some light on
Yeah,
what's going
Thursday
on.
night to see. Yeah.
All right, so the motion on the table right now is to move the first line item, vendor application, to a flat $600 and eliminate
The 75.
the 75, which is Friday vending, parentheses 12 PM to 11 PM.
Correct.
Correct?
I'd like to get the city manager's opinion on that, if you would, please.
I don't have any big issue with that. I mean, again, some of the vendors are there, some aren't. I know Councilor Felch asked me how many people that we who took advantage of the Friday extra day, and it varied from 40 to 50 to 80 over the last 3 years. And I think typically we end up with somewhere around 175, 190 vendors, you know, a little bit off in the past couple of years, you know, I mean, especially 2 years ago, but last year was a little bit off with COVID. But, you know, so if you say that probably, you know, a third to 40% are setting up on Friday anyway, and some of the others, I just know anecdotally are coming from elsewhere or don't even get here in the city until, you know, Monday or something. So, you know, and if the chief is fine with it in regard to it not being any major staffing, then I wouldn't have any concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Motion being on the floor, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Item number 21C, which is a sale of lot number 3 in the Lakes Business Park, 270 Hansel Avenue. The Lakes Business Park Commission approved the sale of lot number 3 in the Lakes Business Park at its meeting on December 21st, 2021, contingent upon the approval of the Guilford Board of Selectmen, Laconia City Council. The offer for lot number 3 was received from George C. Stafford and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $75,000. The use of the lot would be consistent with the Lakes Business Park covenants. The purchase and sale agreement is attached. Right now, I'll be looking for a motion to move to approve the vote of the Lakes Business Park Commission for the sale of lot number 3 in the Lakes Business Park in the amount of $75,000, and to authorize the city manager to sign the required documents in connection with the sale. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion? And the only discussion I might have, maybe just walk us through the process briefly, if you could, Scott, so we can, I know this, anyway, go right ahead.
Yep. So this was a proposal to come in and purchase this land to construct what they refer to as a propane tank farm. So the larger propane trucks would be coming in and offloading into a system similar to one that's off of Lexington Drive on Primrose North, I believe. It was felt that the number of vehicle trips, either from the large delivery vehicles, trucks coming in, and the smaller ones that show up at people's houses, would not be a major impact. We expect the infrastructure of this comparable to what was up on Primrose North, and would be adding probably in the area of $500,000, give or take, in new assessed valuation. It's not our assessors who would do it, it would be Guilford's, but certainly we get a piece of the revenue that comes in from this. And there'd be a couple of jobs created, because this has been a slow recent expansion by Stafford, who typically had been in the oil business for the most part and going into propane. So there will be a couple of jobs created. It's not expected that there'd be much of a building up there, maybe a small office space, bathroom, way to get out of the cold type of stuff, but it's not going to be staffed or any type of a significant office building. If it were up there, probably just a small Butler building type of thing. So, and they're required to make sure it's screened, on a 12-month-a-year basis, so that it's not visible, driving by. I believe this lot has got some elevation to it, and the tank farm itself is not that tall, so I don't think you're looking at anything massive. Number one, you're looking up, and number two, the height isn't that great anyway, but screening will be a requirement just to keep the integrity of the park.
Scott, is the standard brokers commission on this?
There is Weeks Commercial has the contract, and so there will be a commission on this. And also I should say this is somewhat lower than our asking price, but as some of the more choice lots have been built out in the park, they've been not as much height or not as much cutting in to put in driveways and stuff. So a lot of our remaining inventory collectively in the Lakes Business Park are more challenging sites regarding the earthwork that needs to be done. So they have looked at a company to come in and, quote them what it's going to cost in making this a user-ready site for their need. And it was a fairly big number. I don't remember at the top of my head, but I know it was a large number when I heard it. So therefore, their offer is under our asking price, but it's reflective of the site work that they're going to incur on this.
Scott, is that more towards the Laconia end?
Yes.
Is it beyond the brewery?
It's right in the vicinity of the brewery.
If it blows up, it'll take the brewery with it. Think about that.
Yeah. Going to take this act on the road, Councilor Cheney.
Yes,
Tonight you're
sir.
killing it. All right, so we've got the motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion, questions of the city manager?
And I should add, the Guilford Select Board have already approved it from their end.
So all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Moving on to item number 21D, which is the Fire Department Safer Grant. Fire Department is in the process of applying for a Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Grant. If awarded, this grant would fund 4 additional firefighters for 3 years prior to submitting the final application. Chief Biotti is looking for the city council support in applying for this grant. There's minimal fiscal impact. He indicates mostly in startup costs, with the acceptance of the grant, salary and benefits are covered. These 4 people for 3 years. So Scott, maybe perhaps you can just walk us through this just a little bit. I know the chief is here for any follow-up questions.
Yes, yep, thank you. We'll ask the chief to come up. Again, this is a grant that it's usually on an annual basis or every couple of years. It is for staffing. The city did receive a grant back in, I think around the 2013 timeframe to hire 4 additional firefighters. The dynamics of that grant were a little bit different than the cycle that they're offering right now, in which it was 100% of the cost picked up by the grant the first year, and then it dropped to 75%, 50%, 25%, and then was fully on the city. This one is the full cost for 3 years. We were not successful in our last round. It is competitive, and I knew the council supported us applying for it the last round. The chief asked if he could just come in and gauge support again for it this time around, and certainly have it reflect in the minutes if the council's supportive and unanimous support. That certainly bodes well in our scoring and when these are ranked, and to know that the community's behind it and is ready to accept this grant.
Think it's me. Yeah. I don't know if it's me or not, but
Radio.
I don't have.
No, okay. All right. There you
Good
go.
now. Thank you. Yeah, so everything that Scott just said is exactly what I wanted to say. We have a grant writer that's assisting us, not in actually physically writing the grant, but is going through it, looking at it with us, making sure that we're hitting all the key points. One of the first points that he jumped out at was, these are evaluated by people. They're reading the grants, and there's thousands of them coming across the country. They're reading through them, and they look at a few key things, even though they may not be part of the checklist. One of the things I'd like to see is support from the elected officials of the community that you're doing this in before the grant goes out. So by coming here tonight, if I can get your support to do this, it's going to go into the minutes, obviously, and then we can put it in our application, which is due in a couple weeks. That shows that we have support, and that is going to be read by the auditors when they're going through this. And I think it's going to be I think it's going to just give us one more leg up when the grant process comes through. The grant writer that we're working with has given us a few of these little tips, and this is one that, obviously we can't do on our own. We need your support.
And if we are successful, like we did back in 2013 or 14, and I know Councilor Lippman and Councilor Hamel were on the council there, we would start planning now for how we are going to pay for this 4 years from now, so that the full impact of 4 firefighters doesn't all come into the budget with salary and benefits and retirement system and those types of things. So we would come up with a plan on how we would be able to self-fund and put some money in reserve, so that when this grant disappeared in its entirety in one fell swoop, if we get it, we've got some funding in place to ease it in so that it's not a major budget impact.
I think the one thing it's as a 3-year grant too, you're going to have some attrition within the ranks anyway, right? I mean, you're going to need, just assuming that some people are going to.
Yeah, so what they allow us to do, and this happened in 2013, is as somebody leaves, the new person becomes the grant funded person. So at the end of this, if we were to hire 4, at the end of the 3 years, number 1, 2, and 3 probably on that list won't even be considered grant people anymore, because there'll be new people into there. So they allow us to continue to work through that. The other thing that they've allowed us to do in the 2013 one, which was a big help to continuing this forward, is any monies that aren't spent, you factor in high, and any monies that aren't spent roll over. So when we say it's 3 years, there's actually going to be some extra money towards the end that's going to draw this out a little bit longer. I think that first year we should have ended in June, and it was probably October before we were really drawing off the money that the manager was able to work aside for that next grant. So that's just all through our internal workings of the grant.
Mr. Mayor, I've had a few meetings with the fire chief, and if I could have just a minute, I'd like to talk about my experience at 911. Fire chief from Concord came to me in mid-90s and said, "You're able to provide information. 911 is able to provide information about medical response. This is a 9 Delta 3, 9 heart attack, Delta critical, not breathing, something like that." I'm not sure they use all of that now, but what they do is provide local departments with information about medical calls. Now, this may seem like I'm digressing, but I've talked to the chief about potentially building a paramedic intercept, I call it. He may have another name for it, program. With the intent, one of the issues, let me go back to Concord for a moment. The fire chief came to me and said, last week we sent an ambulance to the Steeplegate Mall for a woman who had passed out. Turns out she was 8.5 months pregnant and just needed smelling salts and a few minutes of care. At the same time, we sent an ambulance to the south end for a boy that fell off his bicycle, scunned himself up, landed on his head, was wearing a helmet. He said, we went down and he needed, some bruises and some bleeding taken care of. And then they had a third call, and I forget now what that was, but it was a minor call that didn't really require an ambulance. None of those 3 calls required an ambulance, and all 3 Concord ambulances were committed when they got a heart attack call. And they had to send a fire truck to try and stabilize the person until an ambulance became available. Chief says to me, if you can tell me that it's a kid who fell off his bike or a pregnant woman who's passed out, I can send a paramedic in an RV, SUV. RV would be nice, but the chief and I'd be off for weeks on end. But I send him in I don't even know if he said an SUV, but send him off in a vehicle. He can diagnose where we're at, and do we need the ambulance, number one. And number two, you have a man on scene to assist the ambulance instead of having to send a truck to provide extra manpower to help get someone in. I see this, if it works, and the chief and I, like I said, if it talks about this, I think we'd like to experiment to see if we can do it, to cut down on the number of trucks that roll on these calls, and to cut down on the number of times we have to call in crews, because we've committed the 2 primary ambulances, and now we need a crew to staff the tertiary ambulance, where we might not need that if a paramedic goes and says, we're all set here, or the husband can take her to the hospital, or mom can take the kid to the hospital, or to Dr. So-and-so's office. It's an experiment I'd like to see us try. Secondly, I would tell you, maybe a lot of people put a lot of faith in the federal census. I don't. I think we've grown more than what we've seen in the official census, and we're going to continue to grow because of things like the Colonial Theater and some of the other high points that are going on in this city. And I think we ought to get ready for that. And so I encouraged him to look into this. And I want everyone here to know I support him 100%. I think he understands it's an experiment. And if it goes in the tank, I'll be one of the first to say it didn't work. But I think he'll agree with me, it's going to work.
So,
Mr. Mayor, can I just make one comment on that
Please,
before we get, not to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
just so you know, that this personnel here, if we were to get the SAFER grant, is going to be to support the firefighting operations within the city. As I add personnel, I'm going to have the opportunity to be a little bit flexible with some of my other personnel and be able to run a program like this, and that's my goal. This person would be to support our firefighting operations, and then be flexible with other personnel to be able to work towards the program that Councilor Cheney is talking about right now, which I do support. And I completely agree with, for a couple of reasons. Number one is that we're struggling, as we know, with hiring anybody, let alone paramedics. And, we normally like to have, well, our goal is to have 3 paramedics on a day. We're averaging most of the days around 1. If I can be more flexible with them, we actually will work out a pretty good program, and I think it's going to be successful, not only in providing more efficient operations, EMS wise, ambulance wise to the city, but also in recruitment and retention of personnel. So I think it's a big win-win in this. But I just wanted to stress that this personnel will be to support the firefighting operations.
And I apologize for not mentioning that, but these people will free up other people already on the payroll who are paramedics that can help with this. And I would tell you that, in discussions with other fire chiefs while I was still at 911, those who experimented with this found that hiring got a little better because hiring of paramedics got better because they saw this as their talents being utilized more. So again, I want to tell you, I support this 100%.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. He touched on the thing about, I guess you call them emergency recalls to stations. I think that would be interesting. Is there any way that you could give us a report on the amount of emergency recalls in 2019, 20, and 21?
Yep.
Is that possible?
Yep.
Okay.
I can do the total. I'll be able to find you the total number that I had now, and also the total number of people that came back on those recalls.
Okay.
I'm averaging. The last time I did it would have been 2020 that I evaluated just that 1 year, and I was averaging 1.1 person back per recall. So it's not a flood of people coming in, but I can do a 3-year study for you and try to get it for the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. So right now, we're looking for a motion to move to support the fire department and applying for the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response SAFER grant funding for 4 additional firefighters for 3 years as presented. So moved by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 5 votes in the affirmative.
Thank you.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Moving right along to item number 21E. This is to authorize acceptance of a New Hampshire Department of Justice grant in the amount of $1,197,160 to fund the comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance abuse program. The Laconia Police Department's PET program has been used as a model for assisting individuals that are addicted to illicit drugs. The state of New Hampshire Department of Justice applied for a federal grant to be able to institute the Laconia Police Department's PET program throughout the state. Recently, we have been notified that the grant was awarded to the state of New Hampshire Department of Justice, and the Laconia Police Department is a sub-recipient. This project will enable the Laconia Police Department to develop prevention, enforcement, and treatment programs with police departments throughout the state of New Hampshire. This grant was included in the fiscal year 21-22 anticipated grants resolution, Resolution 2021-09. A public hearing was held for grants listed in the resolution on June 14th, 2021. There is no fiscal impact. The entire cost of this program is covered by the COSAP grant. There is no local match requirement. The COSAP grant is, in fact, the comprehensive opioid stimulant substance abuse program. This report and these details were submitted by Captain Al Grattan of the Laconia Police Department. So I see the chief here. I also see Eric Adams, who's I'd look to counselors here. If there's a motion, I can maybe ask for a motion, a second, and discussion, and perhaps if anyone from the police department or the city manager for questions, maybe that's the appropriate time. So looking for a motion to approve acceptance of the New Hampshire Department of Justice grant in the amount of $1,197,160 to fund the comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance abuse program. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Any further discussion on this grant? Scott, maybe just give us a little oversight and an overview of this.
Yeah, I'll give you a brief overview and then we'll ask the chief and Eric Adams to come on up and correct me if I err or fill in where I missed. But again, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, this is a roughly $1.2 million grant that's coming to the state through the Department of Justice. We are a subrecipient along with another 6 or 7 police departments around the state. What's really happening here is the state is going to be modeling the position that was created and Eric has served in so notably for a number of years now for the prevention, enforcement, treatment. And Eric is actually going to take the lead on that program and work with the other communities to help set them up and be a resource for them. The good thing about this is in discussions, that were held. There was an opportunity for Eric to work out of AG's office or somewhere in Concord. And the feeling was that he wanted to stay here and still do this work, but perform locally so we don't lose the full benefit of him and all his institutional knowledge and great relationships. And then as we backfill the position with another officer, again, he will be in the building to be able to, assist with some mentoring and again, be a resource. And the grant will be paying for Eric's salary because in essence, he'll be running a statewide program and it'll be paying for 2 additional salaries, I believe, within the grant, if I'm correct on that. So that's the long and short of it from my end. So the whole 1.2 million isn't a Laconia grant, but there's a component of that overall in conjunction with New Hampshire Department of Justice and the other police agencies in the state who are partnering on this. So.
Good evening again. As you know, we have a long tradition of addressing issues in police and in a much different manner than just enforcement. This program came to light a number of years ago. Prevention, enforcement, and treatment. It's certainly a non-traditional means of policing. Eric has taken this program, he's run with it, and he has done a lot of really good work with it. This was recognized by the New Hampshire Attorney General's office. They have seen the success in this program. This is the 3rd year that they've applied for this federal grant. It is their desire to bring this program statewide to other agencies. They've selected a number of several other agencies to, I guess, for Eric to bring this program to them and bring it into those departments. Their desire is to continue this on a long-term basis to bring it statewide eventually. So I can let Eric talk a little bit more about it in depth.
Sure. Thank you, councilors, mayor, city manager. So we've been trying for the last 3 years to acquire this grant. So it's here. And basically, so my position, I will be heading up, basically teaching several police departments. There's 7 total police departments, and basically just implementing the program that we run here at the PD. We've had a lot of success with it, and it's really about building community collaboration, and different things within police departments, making sure that using proper language when you're talking to someone, kind of humanizing some of the things that we do on a daily basis. And so obviously with the uptick in mental health and addiction, it's really been a struggle for a lot of agencies. So this will give us the opportunity to help these other agencies basically start doing what we do already. We've had great success. We've been nationally recognized, and none of this obviously would happen without the support of all of you and the chief. So, and the community. I mean, the community's been amazing. The support that we get. So does anybody have any questions?
So congratulations to Chief and as well as you, Officer Adams. We're very fortunate to have talented people at the Laconia Police Department. And we're fortunate. I guess the only question I have is that as you go off to the other police departments to offer your expertise and training, who's the next Eric Adams?
Right. Yeah. So that's the question. So basically I did ask, and the chief was okay with it, that I stay at the PD. So a lot of the stuff that I'll be doing, we partnered on this grant with Amiskeg Health and to implement the ACERT program, the Adverse Childhood Emergency Response Team program. And so they will be building what they call a technical assistance center, where I will actually work with them and then recruit other professionals in law enforcement to help create training modules. So with the times we're in, a lot of this stuff can be done remotely. Obviously, there'll be instances where I will have to go before their city councils and help their police departments kind of work with them. But for the vast majority of the stuff, we actually can do it remotely.
Great.
I stress to the chief that I do want to stay here. This is my home. And so I like this city. And for me, being able to work within it still, but yet do bigger, broader things, I think is great.
Thanks very much. And really sincerely, thank you for all the work that you've done in this area. This is a tough job. Policing in itself is a tough job, and then sort of put another twist on it with the pet program was pretty challenging and remarkable that you've been able to do what you're doing and gain the respect, and not only in the community statewide, but also beyond the borders of the state as well. So thank you. Councilor Hamel.
Thank you. Eric, how many years have you been doing that now? I can't remember.
Yeah, we started in September of 2014.
14. Okay.
Yeah, so I came before you, I think 3 times. The way we set up, I think it was 3 months, see how we're doing, 6 months, see how we're doing.
Well, I remember when this all came about, and council at the time, when you came here, recognized that there was a problem in Laconia, and how we're going to address it. And we kind of gave instructions like, go out, see what you can do, see what you can gather, and make something happen. And you did that along with the department. And look what it's blossomed into, being recognized throughout New Hampshire now. It's an amazing thing. I think you did an amazing job.
For sure, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that, who is the next Eric Adams? That's the benefit of him working out of the police station, is that he's around to have the institutional knowledge to help train the next person, because this was a program that was born over many, many years, that was developed by Eric and the work that he's put into it personally. So to have him working out of our police department as a resource for the next person that's going to step into that role is huge. So
Thanks, Chief. Councilor Cheney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As someone who comes from the knuckle dragger time period of law enforcement, I am so impressed with what you are doing and what you're allowing to do. I can't say enough about how proud I am of the city of Laconia for allowing it to happen, and for you to have the good sense to push this program to its limits. I think it's fantastic. I think in an age when people are screaming out defunding police, you two and a lot of the other people over there are the reason we can't afford to defund police, because you guys are doing something above and beyond what I ever did. And I'm not sure I would have recognized it in my day, but the city had a problem, as Councilor Hamel suggested. And you rose to that occasion, and you saw to it, it kept going. Thank you both very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Does that mean you're going to vote for it?
Yeah, I think that's what.
Your knuckles have healed nicely too, Councilor Cheney. All right, so that being said, the motion's on the table right now. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Congrats. Let's move on to item number 21F, which is authorized acceptance of a New Hampshire Department of Justice grant in the amount of $45,000 to fund the Substance Abuse Reduction Initiative, AKA Granite Shield. Laconia Police Department applied for funding through the New Hampshire Department of Justice to assist in overtime pay for officers to investigate drug crimes within the city of Laconia. These funds allow drug detectives to work beyond their normal work hours to foster investigations and surveillance of suspected drug dealers. Laconia Police Department is committed to making our community safer, and illegal drug sales and addiction are one of the major driving factors in a large number of crimes committed within the city. With these funds, the Laconia Police Department can target certain areas or individuals involved in the dealing of illicit drugs. The grant was included in the fiscal year 21-22 anticipated grants resolution. It was resolution 2021-09. A public hearing was held for grants listed in this resolution on June 14th, 2021. There is no fiscal impact. The entire cost of this program is covered by the New Hampshire Department of Justice Substance Abuse Reduction Initiative grant. There is no local match requirement. This report was also submitted by Captain Al Grattan of Laconia Police Department. So right now I'll be looking for a motion to approve acceptance of the New Hampshire Department of Justice grant in the amount of $45,000 to fund the Substance Abuse Reduction Initiative, AKA Granite Shield. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 22, which is unfinished business under 22A, second reading of resolution 2022. 22A is 22A is still on the table. It's the request to designate a portion of North Main Street and no parking zone on both sides of the road.
North Street.
North
North Street, what'd I say?
North Main.
North Street.
That's all right.
I'll make a motion to take it off the table.
Is there a second?
To take it off the
Off the
table?
table.
Didn't,
No second to take it off the table right now.
which was the one that you said
We
was
started
not?
out reading the incorrect one. So right now we're under 22A, which is a request to designate a portion of North Main Street, North Street, no parking.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies. Yes, 22E. So right now there is a motion without a second to take it off the table.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor of the motion to take item 22A off the table, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 3 votes in the affirmative. Opposed? 2. 3-2, that motion passes. It's now off the table.
Okay. It's basically a hazard. I don't know if everybody's taken a ride up there. There's always cars parked on side, on a corner, on a hill, where there's no sight line coming down the road. I'd like to ask Wes to come up and discuss what we had for discussion today and his thoughts on it as well.
The challenge is you can't make one side or the other side no parking. Because bottom line, if a car parks there, whichever side it is, a car's gonna have to go into the other lane. Between the curve and the hill, you don't have the sight line to make it safe. There was some discussion about moving the sidewalk to the other side. Well, the other side is an extremely steep hill. You're going to be dealing with driveways that you can or may not be able to make safe again by making a flat area for a sidewalk. The other piece to it was in regards to stop signs. Typically, what you do is you make your collector roads the ones where the through traffic goes through. So that's North Street, Sheridan, and Belvedere. And you make your cross streets, which have less traffic, the ones that are stopping. And that's how it's set up for now. So basically, the options are limited to basically, do you make it no parking? Or do you leave it in the unsafe condition that it is? The street, the acceptance of it dates back to 1853. We accepted the full right of way. The full right of way went up against what would later be the house that was built and is presently occupied by Mr. Mudge. That was built in 1871. So at that point, the property owner who built it to be right up against the edge of the right of way. There has been no further actions for additional easements or everything. The sidewalk was built in the city right away. And that's where it sits.
So, also, there was a question about parking. He's got 5 or 6 spaces not far from his house, on the side of his house. He's got at least a dozen, if not more, down on Sheridan Street. He's got plenty of parking. There's no cars there at night, but there's almost always a car there during the day. And as I said, it is definitely a safety issue I've had to hit my brakes more than once coming down that hill. I've had several residents on North Street that have complained about it, and that's why I brought it forward.
So my question for discussion is, it's a safety issue. How do we characterize a safety issue? I mean, getting behind the wheel of a car is a safety issue. Crossing a street's a safety issue. I mean, it's got to be a sense of reasonableness there. Have we seen a number of accidents, either car on car or car on pedestrian? I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, there's lots of sort of blind curves and sloped roads and, you know, older roads that maybe present the average driver with a little bit of challenge to make sure they operate safely and don't bang another car, bang another person. But, you know, how do we call that?
Because of the sight lines, especially when somebody's parked on the side of the road and it narrows it to one lane. You have to go over into the other lane in order to get around.
But how long has it been that way?
A long time, but there's been a lot of new houses built up on North Street.
So you're saying there's a lot more traffic.
Exactly.
But since there's been more traffic, whenever that is, I mean, are we seeing a significant increase in the number of accidents and or complaints from lots of people, not just one person or two people that may not like it?
Complaints. As I said, several. I didn't say one or two.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'm trying to remember here, and
Could I interject or ask Tony or Councilor Felch a question? You mentioned they don't park on the street at night. And from my experience, I think I mentioned to you before, I used to own some property on School Street, a 6-unit apartment house there. So I was over there a lot. And it was the night times I remember being spooked there. I don't know who used to park there, but somebody used to
Well,
park.
I'm saying overnight, so it's still at night, just not late night when our.
And so I guess, I mean, the daytime, I've driven it as recently as Tuesday or Wednesday of last week to look at it again. During the daytime, you can, as Bob is sort of alluding, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but people can get used to that and whatever. I think the danger is at night. So I guess my question to you is, what if we said no parking sunrise to sunset to sunrise, something along those lines, to take care of the part of the day that's really the most dangerous, and forcing him to put his cars on his property overnight? He's there for half an hour. I'm not as.
Well, one of the stipulations to go along with this, which I don't have a problem with, is if they're unloading or loading, dropping somebody off, I don't have a problem with that. But they're parked there for hours on end. And it is a hazard. I mean, you can ask Wes about sight lines.
Oh, I know the sight line.
Yeah.
Ain't all that hot, but how, and what about if we limit the amount of parking? Like,
I don't think that's going to make a difference. If one car, you have to go out around. So
I agree. I just think daylight, it might be less critical.
Is it possible to put signage there of some sort that says be extra cautious? Something there tells people to slow down.
You're going down a hill. People just, you increase your speeds when you go down a hill.
But if you tell people, I mean, you do if you're not in control of your car. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're in control of your vehicle and you're aware, you have good situational awareness, you ordinarily won't speed up. But I mean, I agree. A lot of people don't drive that way. Maybe most people.
People don't read signs either or pay attention.
We
to
know
them.
that. Yeah, but
We know that.
we
So
can't
put
help
a
them when
sign
they're
up.
reading, and we can't make them take another driving test, unfortunately. But Councilor Hamel, sorry.
I was just wondering, I mean, that area is not a very long road. Right, that bend.
That bend, right.
All right. So what if we made it one way going up the hill and it
There you
alleviates
go.
the cars from coming down? And then that alleviates the,
Make it going downhill because he wants to park.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd have to park against, well, it wouldn't be against
It's only
traffic.
one
if
way.
it was
doesn't
one way.
matter. Hold on the same side of the street, make
I
it
agree.
one way going up.
Wes?
Well, I would say one way going down, if anything.
Well, down is your problem. You said you can't see.
Well,
You can't see coming up either.
right, it's both directions.
But you're not going faster.
But
you're
he's
going up.
on, the
Close the
he's,
street then.
he's parked on the side that would be going up. So if you do it down, you've got a clear lane.
Whatever. Make it one way. I think there still needs some more discussion on this.
Well, I can tell you that Wes, myself, and Chief Canfield all agreed.
I agree it's a hazard, Tony. But I wish we could find some mid-ground.
Yes, I agree.
So what if we do no parking for now, and if we come up with something else? we can always change
Well,
it.
no, yeah,
No,
that's brilliant.
I just don't get, it's public safety.
It's public safety. It's a public, if those operating on that public way, there is a little bit of a challenge in that. I wouldn't disagree with you on that, right? I mean, I just don't know if it rises to the level of this. Is this a public safety situation that the city needs to do something like have no parking on both sides of the street impacting the abutters?
Come out
I
on Bay
don't
Street
know.
onto Court Street. That's a hazard.
You know, it's
Can't
all
see
over.
nothing.
Come out on First Street, period. That's
Ask
a
your
hazard.
public works director and your chief of police.
So there's a motion on the table right now. All those in favor of the motion, that's up. You ready to keep talking?
Yeah. I mean, he's already parking in the bottom of a hill, evidently having to climb upstairs to get there. And then, now I don't know. He says it's 100 yards away. That sounds like a long ways. If he bought-
How can you, and your microphone?
If he bought the adjacent property, is it that
Right.
far away?
I don't believe it's 100 yards, no,
No.
100 feet maybe.
That would be a football field.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of difference. there.
No, it's not that far.
Okay.
The property abuts his property, so. And there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 spaces there, which usually when he's parked on the side of the road, there's an empty spot.
It's a hazard. There is no question about it. Coming, going, or no matter how it flies. I'd like to suggest that I think maybe Bob's onto something, that maybe the compromise is to see about a one-way street.
I think in that case, we should table this and look at it.
Oh,
Yeah. Maybe that won't work at all. I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
think,
but
Wes?
at least have him look at it.
The only thing I will say is we have a short section of one-way street on Pleasant from North Main going down to basically Havenwood. And I get a lot of complaints, a lot of calls and saying, I got to do something about the people going the wrong way down the one-way street.
I live there. It's not that big of an issue. It does happen. So,
Yeah, I've seen some signs come out there.
Well,
And it could
one-way
also
street
be
on
an
Fair
enforcement
Street too.
issue.
Go right ahead.
If you are going to consider something different like one-way traffic, I would hope you would put this item to bed with a vote tonight and not just keep tabling, because tabling means you need additional information. And at this point, I don't know what else I can bring you. So if you want to put some finality to it and look at a different option, I would say take action on this tonight, because if you come back with something different, we want to focus on that, not trying to amend something here that deals with a no parking.
So if the motion on the floor fails, are you going to recommend the one-way street?
Yeah.
But I don't think we're in a position to recommend that tonight. I mean, I think this takes a little extra look at this general area to see, does a one-way street make sense, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, I mean, it's basically starting all over again.
Taking a section of that street and making it one way, I just think it's foolish.
It's just a thought.
I just,
Bruce, would you mind if someone called the question right about now?
Would I mind?
Yeah.
I guess not.
Would you call the question?
Yes, I'll call the question.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor, on the table right now?
Okay, so what?
No parking right
no
now.
parking.
No parking. Okay.
So, okay, so let's go back. So it's off the table. Right, it's been removed from the table. So right now, the motion is a move to approve designating a no parking area on both sides of North Street from the southern boundary of the lot at 51 North Street to the intersection of Sheridan and North Street. That's the proposed motion. Is there a second?
It's already been.
I
We've
think
already
it
done
has
the
Did we
been-
do this or we
second.
take it off the table? Am I doing it twice?
Yes.
Yes.
you are.
That's better than, all right.
We did it again.
All right, we did it again. So you called the question. That's the motion that's on the table, on the
Okay.
floor right now. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 2 votes in the affirmative. All those opposed to the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 3 votes. That motion fails.
That's why you're mayor.
I don't know. Okay. All right. Under item number 22B, second reading of resolution 2022-02 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $30,085 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program. The first motion is a motion to waive the reading of the resolution in its entirety and read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative. Second, looking for a motion to move a second reading of resolution 2022-02 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $30,085 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program Project. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That's 5 votes in the affirmative and it passes. Finally, on this item, looking for a motion to approve resolution 2022-02 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $30,085 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program Project. So made by Counselor Lippman, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Thank you, counselors. Under item number 22C, which is a proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $500,000 in community development block grant to renovate the space at 17 Church Street, owned by the Laconia Housing Authority. So right now, we'll be looking for the public hearing earlier. Right now, we'll be looking for a motion to approve the proposed application on the proposed project to renovate the space at 17 Church Street owned by the Laconia Housing Authority. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Item number 22D, the Anti-Displacement Relocation Assistance Plan for the proposed renovation of 17 Church Street CDBG grant. Right now, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the Anti-Displacement Relocation Assistance Plan for the proposed renovation of 17 Church Street CDBG project. So made by Counselor Lippman,
Yes.
seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes as well. 22E remains on the table for gaining additional information. Moving on to item number 22F, the annual city manager evaluation. We started this, as you know, a couple of weeks ago. Certainly, we're in great shape as a city. It has an awful lot to do with our current city manager. Unfortunately, as most of you know, we're going to be losing him in September of 2022. I've had an opportunity to sit with him and offer him his evaluation, offer him some of the thoughts that many of you have had. I would say it's an overwhelmingly positive evaluation, Mr. Manager. And certainly, I think you're certainly earned the 2.5% increase into your compensation to your salary. I'm wondering, certainly it's something I think we should bring before the council here. Now might be an opportune time to briefly offer the city manager feedback, as well as your thoughts on the 2.5% increase in his pay. Counselor Felch, I'll go right around the table here. Do you have anything?
Well, I think he's done a great job,
Right, Counselor Himmel.
except for the fact he's a Miami Dolphins fan.
We'll be docking for that game.
He says he's done a great job, except the fact that he's a Miami Dolphins fan. You missed absolutely nothing. Go right ahead.
No, I think, I agree. I was one of the ones that voted for Scott, and I don't regret it whatsoever. He's done a great job for the time he's been here. And, the city's come a long way, and I think a lot of it is due to his guidance. So thank you for your time, Scott.
Yes, I will. As many of you know, I was as Mayor Engel referred to as a rookie, and I spent many of January and February in Scott's office trying to get up to speed. And he was extremely helpful, and he's extremely helpful even today. And he never once questions your phone calls, whether they make a lot of sense or they don't. So it's well deserving. And my only comment is I would hope that he'd reconsider.
Nancy makes him look good.
I know.
Absolutely.
Council Lippman.
Thank the manager for the good work he's done, particularly on a leadership basis. Brought in some good people to round up the team. Glenn sitting behind you, and appreciate that. And, I think when we went through the search process last time, we took a chance in going the unconventional route, which was not to pick someone who had already been a city manager. And I think we looked at the complete picture, and it paid off, and it has paid off. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you. I apologize, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
timing's impeccable tonight, Counselor Cheney.
I
He's
think-
getting teary-eyed.
Well, that somewhat plays into what I was going to say. I think his decision to leave us demonstrates a lack of decency and puts us in a very difficult position of trying to find a replacement. I would have opposed any pay raises for him or anything else, just based on the fact that he wasn't smart enough to listen to me when I said, don't do it. I wish him all the best in the world. I would remind everybody here that he was recently engaged. That may have something to do with this. I'm not sure. But I wish you all the best in the world. I mean that.
Well, you're not getting rid of me for 8 or 9 months, but thank you.
But we don't have to listen to you anymore.
There you go. There you go.
So the 2.5%, we'll make that up. We'll do that paperwork sometime over the next couple of days. If we can, Scott will stop by. Moving on to the next chapter here in the city of
Just,
Laconia.
I think you
Go
probably
ahead.
need to get a motion and a second on that and do a vote for the record. Payroll is very strict like that.
Is there a motion for the 2.5%? So made by Counselor Hamel, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, and well deserved, well earned. What I handed out for you, we won't go over it in detail tonight. We've gone long enough, but it's putting a timeline in place for finding Scott's replacement. And we will continue to have some discussions about, there are a couple of opportunities with resource management and the services they may offer for a fee, and helping us put this together was used to recruit Scott, to solicit interest. There's also an opportunity through Primex. I'll continue to take a look at that and share that information with you. But, I think Scott and I were talking today. we really work from September 6th backwards. And, you know, having someone in place by July, someone that we've chosen, we've put through their paces and they've accepted would be about the right time. That gives us about 6 or 8 weeks. So over the next couple of weeks anyway, we're going to have work out some of these details and prepare to get ads placed to begin the recruitment process and put together the next steps. Have to go back and maybe talk with those of you who were here in 2011 about what steps you were taking in the interview process and things like that. So I'll be following up with you, but your input's important. All right.
Could
Absolutely.
I neglected something during council comments that I'd like to make.
We moved past that.
I know you have, but it's only, take a second. I went to the Lakeshore Redevelopment Planning Commission meeting today. And they had a couple of votes on some spending of some money to look at the historical value of the insides of the building and some other things that I didn't entirely understand. What I thought was significant was Councilor Attorney Cheney approached me after the meeting and asked me how the city council felt about where we were going and where they were going. And I said, I think the council was encouraged to hear that the company that's doing the bidding or
CBRE.
Right.
Yeah.
Has been encouraged to come to us, to come to our mayor and planner. We felt better about that. I said, my belief is the council wants the city to be much more involved in discussions about where we want to go with that property. And he agreed. So I'm hoping that has some, meets with some fruition.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney, for attending that meeting. I have had an opportunity to sit and discuss the matter with Commissioner Arlinghouse at Administrative Services, talking about the whole project. And he has been very good about sitting down, talking about things, keeping the door open, keeping the dialogue going. I also met Jared Nyland, I'm sorry. Nyland, who is one of the attorneys in his department handling the marketing and potential sale of the property. So we've had some good meetings. I encourage them to continue to reach out to the city manager as well, and a couple other people in town who understand the history of the property as well. So I think it is a good relationship, but thank you.
If I just might, I'd like to thank Councilor Cheney. I know he's been very good at attending those meetings, and his information is very well worthwhile.
Well, thank you. The only other thing I would mention is I had spoken to the manager, and I'm hoping you will encourage him. We have a personnel issue. I was hoping we could meet in executive session sometime soon and get the results of what was going on. I think that's appropriate.
Next meeting, could we put that on? Would that be all right? Yeah, great. Okay, terrific. Go right ahead, Scott. I know you had one thing to add.
Yeah, just on the timeline the mayor handed out, that basically mirrored the process that the council used back in 2011, but it was a much shorter window of opportunity there. So they started working with municipal resources in March, and having lived through it from my end, had the negotiations about the final employment agreement in the latter part of June. So that was accelerated. So nothing there is locked in stone. It just kind of mirrors for you that they advertised. They had at least 4 weeks of time for people to respond to it. They culled the list down just from a first blush to I think around 20, sent out essay questions that the council had approved on different things that were important to you. There were probably 4 or 5 essay questions that I loved responding to. Got those back in, kind of went through those, set up a telephone panel of other managers and administrators from the state to kind of go through it, winnowed it down from there, and then ultimately I think brought about 10 names to the council, and the council ended up selecting, I think it was supposed to be 6, but 5 ended up interviewing. And included in that, they also had our auditors reach out and do a phone interview with two finalists at the end, and our attorneys do phone interviews with the two finalists. So that was a little bit of the process, much more condensed. So the dates that I've got there are just kind of placeholders working back from September, but there's no reason that you have to do all of that, and there's no reason it can't be tightened up either. So just giving you a little bit of historical background and as we kick off the process.
Thank you, Scott. I'd like to adjourn the city council meeting at 9:30 PM. We're closed now, Patrick, but maybe on the side. Yes.
Not be on the public. I just want to say, you can tell the caliber manager